Hello, I'm Tom Irons, physician here in Greenville. Been here in Greenville now for 30-some years, born and raised here. I have the privilege today of interviewing a candidate for mayor, my friend Tom Best. Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
Tom, start out this way, if you would. You and I met each other through you've involved a lot of public service organizations. It seems like we met through Habitat, is that right?
That's correct, we did.
And that had to be 25 years ago.
Yeah, at least.
Now my son is on that board, and I'm really tickled to have that legacy. Where'd you come from?
All right, I was born in Durham, North Carolina, okay, and spent the whole time growing up there, and then I went to NC State. Okay,
and did you go to work for IBM right out of NC State?
I did. Actually, I had the privilege of working for IBM while I was in college.
And IBM was the thing in the time
They came to the Research Triangle Park during that period.
Right.
And they helped me financially go through college.
Wow. What a nice connection. And you were with IBM for a long time.
That's right. I retired from IBM after 30 years of service.
What did you do there? Tell me more about it. You're an engineer, if I remember correctly.
That's right. I graduated from NC State with an engineering degree and a combination business degree. This was actually a program designed by IBM with NC State.
Designed by IBM for IBM.
That's right. That's right. They wanted some engineers that could manage engineers. The engineers didn't have a good track record.
Yeah, doctors don't have a good track record managing doctors either, Tom. I can tell you that. Well, that's wonderful. And so you had a management level position for the majority of your career with IBM.
Well, actually, I didn't. I worked as an engineer. I went first started in the Triangle, working as an engineer. Actually, watching people work. I was an efficiency engineer. And then after a year and a half, they asked me to join the marketing force in Chicago, Illinois. Then after 5.5 years there, they sent me to Atlanta, Georgia to work in development. And later I worked on staff. And then from staff is when I became a manager. And I reported into Raleigh, North Carolina. But I was located in Greenville, North Carolina.
So you came to Greenville in your first management position, reporting into Raleigh for IBM.
That's right.
And how long ago was that, Tom?
That was 30 years ago.
Wow. Wow.
That's when I came in 1983.
You came in 83, and you know I did too. I actually came to ECU in 81 and was down for 2 glorious years, stationed down in Newbern, setting up a program down there and living down there near the water. It was so lovely, but we moved to Greenville at that point in time, and I have to say I've learned to love the place. How about you?
I love it. I love the water. Okay, that's the one thing I like. I like to go fishing, and
Lord, I do too.
I used to have an excellent fishing partner. Unfortunately, he's passed on, Herschel Williams, but I miss him. But he lived into his 90s, and we were still fishing right up to almost the last minute.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, it was wonderful.
That's a good memory. You've been involved a great deal in this community, and I know about Habitat. But tell me more. I know you've had a lot of involvement with the humanitarian council, the Council on Human Relations.
The Council on Human Relations.
Yeah. Tell me more about that.
Well, I served on that council for 3 years, and of course, one thing that council is responsible for, and it's very enjoyable, is we orchestrate and present the Best Irons Award, which is named after your mother, and Dr. Best. Okay, so that's another connection we have, and
I love that
quite a bit. That's a great connection.
I so enjoyed going to those banquets when the two of them were living, and Dr. Best was quite the raconteur, and he could tell a story and carry it on, and I was rapt listening to him, because my mother was the same way. None of us had any problem with talking. We all like to talk a lot. Tell me some more about your volunteer work.
Okay, well, I've served on, like you say, Habitat for Humanity, served as president for that, served president of the board, and that was Mayor Pat Dunn and myself worked together on that, and she was vice president, I was the president, then I was the past president while she was the president, and during that period of time, we actually created the resale store, which has been so successful for that organization since then. That was during Pat's period, but we began it. It took a while to get ourselves
wonderful store. A young lady I just met who's married to a medical student They've just moved to town, and they both went to Davidson, where I went to school, and she's now working in the store.
Oh, excellent,
And
excellent.
she's thrilled to death to be in the store. She's got experience with Habitat up in Charlotte, and I think it's one of the finest organizations in this community. And really, if you could pick the one catalyst, the strongest catalyst for the revitalization of West Greenville, I think you'd have to pick Habitat.
We have many houses in that
Oh,
area.
I love to drive
And
people through and show them and
Yeah,
teach them about it.
I was walking through that community Saturday and actually made a point to go by each of the Habitat houses.
Yeah, isn't that a nice feeling?
That was
it's a nice
real good
feeling.
feeling.
Something concrete that you can see. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of the things that you and I do, we can't see concretely. Seems to me, wasn't there a time when you and Attorney Earl Brown were together handled with some judicial misconduct things?
Well,
and it was
apparently there'd been quite a few complaints for some lawyers in Pitt County.
for lawyers.
Against lawyers.
Against
okay?
lawyers.
Yes.
Yeah, I said judicial misconduct.
That's
I
right.
misspoke.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so the Bar Association of Raleigh put together a committee, and they had to have a civilian. I was appointed as a civilian. Earl Brown was the chair. And so we reviewed, and we had another lawyer involved, and we reviewed those each of those complaints and made our recommendations. And that was
You are
few years ago.
Yeah, and a lot of and not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
You're,
And things, we don't have those problems now.
yeah, it is wonderful. It is wonderful.
right.
But being able to step in and do those things and handle them diplomatically and in a dignified fashion for all concerned is really important. And I've always seen that as something that you are good at. You're obviously running for mayor. That's why we're doing this interview. Have you ever run for public office?
Never. This is the first time.
I think I asked you that once before, and you said no. I said, my goodness, what in the world? Tell me, why are you running?
Well, I'm running for the city, you know, to serve and represent the citizens and everybody in the city. And I was asked by friends and acquaintances and several business leaders and business owners called me during a period of time this summer in July, and you have
You
to,
said
when
yes.
you get a call from people you don't even know, sometimes you have to listen.
Well, I remember how glad I was that you had said yes. I've had, as you know, and I've certainly made no secret the fact that I support you. I wrote a letter.
Absolutely.
It was sent out, but I've been concerned about the sort of contentious way the council has functioned over the course of this last year, and it just doesn't seem proper. And I think bringing some manners and dignity and those sorts of things back to the council is really important. And I saw you as a kind of person who could do that and who could listen to all sides. You're pretty darn good at that. Tell me something about your background and how you think that might help you in
Okay, well,
serving as mayor.
I guess since a very young man at NC State and ROTC, Air Force ROTC for 2 years, and later I served in the U.S. Army Reserve for 6 years. All that was leadership training, not ordering, but leadership training. And then IBM, it's nothing but leadership training, particularly in the management positions.
Right.
And also I had to be a project manager in, we call them system engineers, but it's managing the implementation of a very large computer and educating the customers. And so you have to build schedules and meet budgets. You have everything that you have with a business.
My son is a systems engineer, and as is my son-in-law.
Okay, so you know.
I know, yeah.
And so they have.
I don't understand anything they do. Nothing that they do I understand.
Well,
but
it was anyway. It was something that gave me an understanding of businesses of all kinds, every kind of business you can imagine. Now, getting back to being mayor, I also have some special things that I've learned over my lifetime, and one is, of course, to maintain civility in an environment, and also to work towards consensus with the group. And I'm a strong believer in what I call collective wisdom. And I'll give you an example of that. All the candidates were asked to respond. We've been responding to dozens of questionnaires.
Right.
There's almost one a week, it seems to me.
Yeah.
And one of them was from the Art Council, which everyone is important, everyone that we get.
Right.
And I've read all the responses from all the candidates, and it's a good example of collective wisdom at work. I think what we arrived at collectively, just by not even talking to each other, is that we need to have an annual arts festival. And I'm saying this is something all of us, ECU and all. I know ECU has one, but I'm talking for the city.
For the city.
Involving the whole city. And
there's that long-term difficulty of connecting the two, and in so many ways I felt like Greenville has come up short of cities that don't have a prominent, wonderful university with a great art program in it, in that the city itself hasn't enjoyed the same wealth of art activity and that sort of thing.
Because the talent, a lot of the people, the city retains a lot of the graduating talent.
Oh,
and so this is an opportunity.
It sounds like a fabulous idea.
To come together and display that. And of course, we want to. That will allow us to beautify the city even more. It's a beautiful city as it is.
It's getting a lot prettier.
It's getting a lot prettier.
I remember when it was really pretty the first time. That was back in the 50s before we tore half of it down and got rid of buildings that would be wonderful to still have today.
Right,
and
historical value.
It's taken some time to bring that back.
A lot of new things are happening.
Yeah.
We're all can be proud of.
And they have been, Tom, some people have expressed concern that, and I've certainly read about it a lot in the paper. I've not been personally involved in any way, that mayors and some council as well, I understand, have been too involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. What assurance do citizens have that you'll leave the management of the city to the departments, or should you leave the management of the city to department heads or employees, or should you step in? It's a tough question, I think.
Well, it's a good question. I appreciate the question. I'm running for mayor and not city manager. Okay, we've hired the city manager. We're a council manager type of government, and what that means is that the city council hires the manager and the city attorney and the city clerk, just 3 positions. The city manager in turn hires all other heads of departments. And anything that, we set policy, we do not go directly or should not go directly to individual employees or staff, heads of staff, and say do this or do that, or even advocate for anyone that comes to us. We should always go through the city manager and respect that position. That's exactly how our government works, and it's a very important thing to learn about council management government. That's what Greenville is.
And very well said. As you know, I work, my other job besides being a doctor is I work for a university system, and I tell you, there's nothing worse than having members of your governing board in your day-to-day business. It usually
it's
works
intimidating.
Well, it's very intimidating, and often it works out badly.
What you do is you reduce the morale of the employees, of the staff.
It leaves people running scared.
Yeah, they don't know if their job's at risk or not. And we had many very talented heads of our departments leave, right?
That was very painful.
It was a change.
It broke my heart to see that happen. I thought the loss of Wayne Byers was, and we have a wonderful manager right now, and I'm thrilled that she's here, but I thought Wayne's leaving the time that he did, it was just terrible. He was wonderful, wonderful.
And then others that followed.
Yeah,
and the perception is that occurred because of this leadership, because of the current leadership
there was
we
some different leadership style that it isn't the style that I advocate for, and certainly not yours. Tell me, and I know our listeners, our viewers are going to want to know, hear you talk about the no more than 3 unrelated persons rule. I grew up in a neighborhood near the university, first right down on Evans Street. That house is long gone. It's right across from where the art museum is.
Oh, okay.
Right next to it.
Yeah, you were down there.
Yeah, right downtown, and then just up the street a few houses, and then over on Rock Spring Road when I was in high school. And I remember controversies then about people moving out of a home and then renting the property and renting it to more than 3 unrelated persons, and having neighbors very, very upset about it.
Even back then.
Yeah. Even back then, it's a long time ago, Tom. Our mayor and a number of our council members, a majority of our council, have supported changing that to 4 unrelated, and I want to understand why.
Okay, well, in 2004, I chaired our neighborhood preservation task force.
Oh, did you?
I did. Now we were focused on something similar, or we certainly had that discussed, and the city staff educated us. They'd go out, they had done their homework, and they were teaching us. And that was one thing that we had modeled already. The city council in 1981 had already modeled our rule from Gainesville, Georgia, and from Charlottesville, Virginia, and others.
College
university towns that are like ours. And so there was a value in that. There was an issue, though it wasn't being respected. And so we were focused on the landlords, you know, and it was the battle was, should the landlords be responsible for the individuals renting their house, whether they have 4 unrelated or more, or should the city?
Should the city?
And you know, should the burden be on the city and the taxpayer to pay for that work? Of the, I'm a landlord, okay, and
you are.
I am, and I take full responsibility for my tenants, okay, and I wouldn't hesitate to make sure that, you know, that we were always, or they were always following the ordinances, whatever those ordinances, you know, don't park on the grass, you know, keep the grass cut, whatever whatever it is, I would, you know, make sure my lease covered that, and I would manage it. This wasn't being done. This is why we had that. Now, what has happened is it's been forced on our neighborhood, a small area of the neighborhood, and it's also been said during that process that if you don't like it, leave the city, and it's all by the mayor, okay?
Goodness, I didn't know.
It's also been said.
Seems like a nice guy.
Well, you go back and look at the clips. But the other thing is, it was to me, it was like a top-down. You know, it was forced on the community, and what I would prefer, I think we should revisit that, and that doesn't mean. And revisiting means that we need to take a stronger look at it and
talk through it again.
Talk through it again. It's that anyone can rent their property, but the 3 unrelated rule does cause problems. I mean, not the 3, but the 4 unrelated. When we added it, you know, added that 4th person, even the 3 in a sense is difficult. But
it is.
But we learned to manage to that. And it was the way it was done. More than anything is the problem, and we need to revisit that.
I understand.
And that would be the
and
pleasure of the council, not the individual mayor.
Not the individual mayor. The mayor doesn't get to make that decision. That'd be the council's decision. The other thing that you have to ask about, or one has to ask about in this mayor's race, is the sweepstakes business. I know our current mayor's advocated for the sweepstakes business and for maintaining the sweepstakes businesses here. I'm certainly not a fan of that sort of business. I don't think it's good for many reasons. I don't have any idea of the details of whether I read the paper. Some questions whether the mayor's tied to the business and that sort of thing. I don't make any judgment on that, but I do want to know what your view is on this and on how you handle something like this. If your business is coming up, if something that involves your business is coming up before council, what's the proper way to handle that, Tom?
Well, you definitely should recuse yourself. In other words, don't participate in that discussion, and make it known that you are affiliated with that business or that organization. As far as the sweepstakes, we do know that our own state Supreme Court has ruled against this particular service or company.
Yeah, our state wants it out.
And that's right, our state wants it out, and they are still working with it because they keep making what they call software changes. That's just a programming change, and know a lot about that. But I've talked to some law enforcement officers that have you know, they remember, you know, what went with the poker games we had, the video pokers, you know, and so they see it as the same business, the same people. They know the people, they know the owners, and that's the biggest concern is that past reputation is hard to overcome, and I don't think that they've overcome that, and you know, that's an issue. And it'll remain an issue because the mayor did not recuse himself.
It will indeed. I know for many people it's an issue.
Everywhere I go, every
Yeah.
time I go to what I call
Yeah.
a meet and greet in
Yeah.
people's homes, they're all asking me
Yeah.
about that. I do not
It
have
has
any
come up.
ties.
I don't ever have people go anywhere where people don't bring that up. We're
That's
talking
right.
about the current.
And I don't have any ties to the
Politics,
sweepstake industry, or actually I don't have any ties to any business now.
Yeah, good. Yes.
Except for my one little unit that I
Your unit that you're in. I got it. Let me.
I take full responsibility for it.
You know, I've never thought that kind of business was good for livability. And for
Quality of life.
recruiting business and industry into a city,
a good point.
making it a place where you want your children to grow up, and we need to increase our ability to recruit. What are the things we can do to recruit business and industry into Greenville, Tom?
Well, that's a good question. I've been through the process, not being responsible for it, but I've been with IBM when they were moving. And what you're looking for always first is talent. You've got to have, meet the needs of that corporation. Fortunately, we have East Carolina University and Pitt Community College, and their graduates do meet the needs of many businesses. And the community college is flexible enough to provide on a dime, make the training. The other thing we have is the hospital and the School of Medicine, Vidant and all the medical, and that's superb too. That's important. The other thing that we're looking for, of course, is a quality of life. Okay, we want a place that's very enjoyable to live. Once you move here and you hire employees, you don't want them unhappy and that sort of thing. So you need to have all forms of entertainment. You need to have parks and greenways. All this is very important.
People need to love to be in the city.
They need to love to be in the city, and I mean that's
so much that they don't all end up at the beach every weekend
That's
or
right.
wherever else they go.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, safety, of course. You want to have a good, secure environment. And these are the things that businesses are going to look for, but they are looking for the talent. They want to have the talent available to them.
Right. Gotcha. Thank you very much. Tom, the mayor and the council got a lot of criticism this year for last minute voting themselves a pay raise at the last minute. And it seems to me, if I remember what the paper said, that there was a budget subcommittee of the mayor and two council members, and I guess they brought it forward. How would you handle that if you were mayor?
Well,
You said some things about transparency too.
That's the key thing. I think the biggest concern I've learned about and heard about just everywhere I've gone, that's still a problem, is they were surprised. And when I say they, I mean the taxpayers, the voters, the citizens were surprised because it wasn't brought up. It may have been brought up in some of their planning sessions, I don't know, but it was not brought up in the hearings, in the public hearings, and that's where you have to be transparent. If you're dealing with dollars, I don't care what it is, whether it's a pay raise or anything else. Now, I do understand in our government, our form of government in Greenville, if a council is going to raise the salary, and you have to maintain some attraction. Yeah. Okay.
Nobody wants to do it.
I know. So
it's hard to get people to do it now.
That's right. You have to do it in that term. You can't say pass it on, like in Congress. You pass for the future term.
I see.
But in our government, because you're setting the budget, and that's when you know you can do it, then you do it. But you still have to inform the public and at least give the public time to think about it and talk about it. And that was not done. It was a surprise. And it's like the top-down approach, forcing a decision without listening to the vast majority of the people that are against it, and whatever it is, and then the other one is surprise.
I've also never been a fan of top-down approaches either.
That's right. It doesn't work.
No,
it doesn't work.
No, what it doesn't in the long run. It works for a while, but it doesn't in the long run.
It doesn't even work in the military.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't work in the military.
No, it sure as heck doesn't. If you don't listen to what's happening down there, you'll never be able to figure it out up here. You have to hear those voices. What do you think of the Neighborhood Advisory Committee, Tom?
Well, I feel like that was somewhat of an offshoot of the task forch that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, it wasn't the intent, but a lot of the people were interested in forming one, and each of our neighborhoods, we have many neighborhoods, and they all have the opportunity to participate in one advisory board as a be represented, And what was going on recently, most recently, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, they actually had a council meeting on Monday where they wanted to include the renters. And that's inclusive, and that was sponsored by one of the council members, I believe, and Candy Smith. You know, she had made the motion to do that. I may be wrong about that, but I think that's right. And you know, the majority were in support of that. They invited, Ann Maxwell, who represents the speaker, spokesperson for the Neighborhood Advisory Board, you know, had made a recommendation of what they call Plan B. And the issue was they were going to include the renters, but they were going to exclude the homeowners association. So you got homeowners association, you have neighborhood associations, and now you have the renters that may live across these areas. Well, the homeowner association, if you don't own the home, even if you rent the home, you're not a member of the homeowner association.
Right, exactly.
Only the one that owns
That's
it.
right, only one that owns the home.
Yeah, they're paying the fees that are outside of the mortgage and all that.
Right, exactly.
So now they were going to be inclusive of the renters, but exclude the homeowners association.
Well, that's what got everybody upset, I guess.
That's right. Well,
doesn't seem like the right thing to do to me.
But they voted to do that. And then the process is they have to come back on Thursday, the next time they meet, to finalize everything, I guess. And we had a forum. It was the first forum, and I brought it up that I would have listened to the advisory board. I would have listened to Ann because I felt she's closest to it. She was making a recommendation. They had all worked hard on it. Candy and Dennis Mitchell had been working with her. So I felt maybe they had arrived at a compromise, so that's who I would have listened to. Well, I brought it up in the forum that I said exactly what I just said. And by Thursday, both the mayor, who was you know, supporting Candy's position, and Candy, they both together voted against their own motion, Candy's motion, and now, as I understand it, the homeowner association is now included.
Well, good.
And I think they made a little change, and they're going to have more than one. But
I'm glad they rethought it.
They did.
I'm glad they rethought it. We don't have much time, Tom. We're about a little over 3 minutes away from the end. You know, don't need to rush, but go back one more time to the issue of civility. What can the mayor do to promote civility on the council?
Just be civil, okay, at all times. You know, don't hold up signs, don't interrupt other council members. But the one thing that I do intend to do is work with every district, with the representative, every council member from every district, and work with their constituents directly. I want to be just involved and just as helpful to each of those council members.
I know them. I know and like them. All of them.
Yeah, and I don't. You know, no matter who's elected.
And whose position is
I'm going to
what,
always be supportive, and I'm not going to, quote, gang up. You know, I want to be, you know, provide leadership and not anything else.
Just leadership.
Just leadership.
Very good. And you are a servant leader, Tom.
Thank you. That's
one of the things I've observed about you for a long time. What's your vision for this city?
Well, real quick, this is a great city. We've already talked about that and agree with that. I want it to be you know, we have a diversity here of all groups are represented, just like the whole world just about are represented right here in Greenville because of the university, I think, primarily. And just like your mother and Dr. Best did, where they brought together the group at the, you know, the different groups at the time. And just like you do, and I know you do, and you do. And you know, we have a large new Latina population too. We need to incorporate everyone and make sure that, you know, if I had a legacy, I would like to say people would look back and say the decisions that they made while he served as mayor, that council made some decisions that we can be proud of and be happy about, and it laid the foundation for the future. And I'd like to see that diversity and everything. I'd like for us to all be one instead of different groups. I want us, when it comes to Greenville, I want us to be one.
We are. We're neighbors, and we have a responsibility towards one another.
That's right.
You and I share that view.
That's right.
And
so that's my goal.
It's a view I'm very proud to share with you. 3 or 4 things you bring to the office. Give us that. Close us out with that, if you would.
Well, I plan to be ethical. That's IBM, okay, through and through. And provide civility, work towards consensus always, work towards collective wisdom versus being
collective wisdom.
Unilateral thinking. In other words, it's not my way or the highway. Let's work together And I know if we were working on a project, our two brains would come at a better solution than just by ourselves.
Yeah, and I'm not sure we start out agreeing.
That's right.
It
wouldn't be necessary.
But don't you want to run for Congress?
I'm just trying to get through this one.
They need somebody who's willing to be civilized and be willing to come to consensus and compromise, don't they?
Well, thank you for the confidence.
Yeah.
Confidence.
Thanks, Tom. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.